What's up, everybody? This is Josh Lyles, founder over at Sales-CRM, host of the Freight Sales Content Pod. I'm joined by, I think it was our most popular guest last year, or at least the most watched episode that we had last year. I'm back here with Logan Dyer, who's the co-founder over at Black Box Logistics. Logan, how are we doing today?
Good, man. Good. How are you doing?
Good, man. Always good to catch up. We were just talking a lot of golf before pressing record and whatnot. I guess speaking of that, just like on a personal note, out of all the clubs in your bag, what's your favorite club in your bag right now?
Either the 58 or the 2-iron.
Respect. Okay, those are two way opposite ends too, though. But
Yeah.
for me, I'd actually say it's my 58
Yeah.
right now.
I like the 58. I got a buddy. He has he calls his longest iron hit the slap, and the 58 the tickle, and he's got it stamped on him. So slap and tickle.
That's great.
But yeah.
Well, cool, man. I'm excited to catch up. We talked about, I think, some really fun topics last year, just around sales and stuff. And I wanted let's start with that. So when you and I spoke last year, we talked a little bit where you were saying that the main hat that you wear as a co-founder with your other two co-founders, but for you in particular, was more around like sales development, sales training. And I found that really interesting and intriguing because I think, honestly, a lot of times with co-founders, they do get very more ops focused, or obviously sometimes more like finance focused, but very often ops focused, especially like within brokerage. And you don't hear a lot of them get deep into training. Right before we started, you said that switched a little bit. So what's like a typical day, week look like for you right now in terms of, primarily like what you're really focused on and getting your hands into the business on?
Yeah. So we haven't hired a ton of new hires over the last year.
Okay.
We had a couple places close by to us. Unfortunately, the companies didn't work out and there was a lot of talent. So we actually onboarded a bunch of players from them, and that's been great. Getting them onboarded and kind of comfortable where they're at and teaching them kind of how we do stuff has been a pretty big focus. And then in the beginning of last year, we kind of moved everything from our agency model over to our own authority. That is almost completely done. So we've had software implementations, new TMS systems, and we kind of chose to gradually do it. So every couple of months, we've got a new set of folks that we have to train on new software and ops and all of that good stuff. Focus, and we're hiring again in July. So I'm going to fortunately get to put the training pants back on and jump back into that with some new curriculum since we've got some new systems and whatnot. But yeah, man, just ops primarily, mainly because we haven't hired, the guys who we've hired don't need to be run through the day one classroom style training that we do for new hires.
And most of the time when you're doing the new hires, I think you mentioned last time, you're more so getting kids out of college, correct? And you were saying like, hey, you just went through a wave where you actually got some experienced brokerage logistics guys, but most of the time when you guys are doing your hiring classes, they're typically college kids, right?
For sure. College age. Yeah. Some of them coming straight out of college. Some didn't go to college. Some did some college, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you have I guess from those being your normal classes, and then in comparison to, the talent that you were able to bring over specifically from the companies that were shut down and whatnot, I'm sure that that's a totally different onboarding, obviously, right? You're taking somebody that's experienced, but is probably used to doing things a different way. Seems like you guys have a really specific way of how you guys like to run your brokerage. What was that experience like?
Man, my main focus was learning from them. What I mean? I can train you how to work a TMS system. If somebody's been doing this for 10 years, they got the bones, right? Cosmetics are showing you where to enter data into a TMS and kind of how a CRM works and all of that good stuff. But it was definitely easier. It's, it takes repetition to get them to function on softwares that we do, but they're always obviously open to it. But yeah, it's been really exciting learning about kind of the way it's done at other places. And if we can get that information and implement it here, it just, it gives us a different perspective. So I hope that answers your question. But yeah, it's been interesting to learn because a lot of these guys are high volume band guys.
Yeah.
Not something we've done. Some were at brokerages that had giant fleets. That's definitely not something we've done. So kind of picking these little tidbits of knowledge has been so.
And just based on what you said, I guess last time, you guys are more in terms of like the niche that you guys have focused on. It's been more SMB, mid-market, like open deck freight, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. That's a pretty interesting ad to be able to bring those guys. into the mix and stuff. All right, so I'm curious about this, and for those that didn't really like watch or listen to our first one and stuff, you guys have an interesting just growth history. I think over the past 5-6 years that you guys have been in business. Did you guys just hit
Sure.
6 years?
Yep. Just hit 6 in March.
Nice, man. So congrats on that. So you guys started off just back room of the house that you guys had originally and stuff. And for me, what I'm kind of curious about is, and I guess like with where I'm at sort of in my entrepreneurial journey, I always find it really interesting of like what growth path people choose. Cause I
Sure.
think we're starting to obviously, it's not even, it hasn't started. It's been just over the past 2 years, more of a bigger impact with freight agency programs where you're getting somebody that just wants to go independent, build their own book, run their own stuff, like live their life and do their thing. What made you guys, I guess, from the earlier days, like starting off brokering in, the back room of your house and everything, get to a point where you said, hey, we want to continue to really grow, scale this thing? You guys are above 50 people, or don't know how many people you guys are at today, but what was the mindset there to say, cool, that's exactly what we want to achieve and to continue to keep growing?
Sure. And people ask us our goals a lot. We get together once a quarter and we kind of talk about, quarterly goals.
Hmm.
I don't think any of us have ever had like a number, right? Like
Yeah.
we've had benchmarks, right? But none of us have an exit plan. No, it's very much we just want more. I think we're all kind of wired that way. I don't necessarily know if we all know exactly what we want, but I know that we all know that we want more. Not
Are
in
you,
like a not in like a more for me way, but just we want to grow, you know?
Yeah. I feel like I wonder this though, from an actual growth standpoint, do you guys just focus more on like the daily behaviors, skills, that kind of stuff? Like, is it more so that with your team and then, you guys let the results speak for themselves based on, where you end up?
So it's actually, I was thinking about this the other day. It's having 3 partners comes with challenges, but it comes with a ton of benefits. And you can break down, like all 3 of us are bracketed to a different kind of viewpoint. And I think that's super advantageous for us.
Hmm.
I love looking at monthly numbers and quarterly numbers. I feel and I look at our year over year numbers. I look at all of the numbers like a responsible person, right? But I'm concerned about what the floor is doing now, like what the
Hmm.
floor is doing right now. And then Hopkins is really good on the month over month, right? He's looking at what, load share we have with specific shippers month over month, carrier rep, customer rep performance month over month. And then William is really good at the quarterly stuff. And we've got a CFO who we use, and he's really good at the high level kind of trending stuff. And I think those pieces mesh pretty well together.
Hmm.
So all of us kind of have a different preference in the scope in which we choose and enjoy looking at the business. And I think that plays pretty well. But for me, I really like seeing what's going on the floor right now, all the way down to the keystrokes. How can I save keystrokes? How can I save clicks? How can we go as fast as we can? And then they kind of look at the other stuff.
Got it. Sounds like you're always focused on the efficiency piece for the squad. So that makes sense. I'm curious, since you've been more ingrained in ops more recently, I obviously want to talk a lot about sales, but when I talk to some of my friends that are still in it and, especially when they dip back into ops and stuff, I feel like there's always some things that pop up where they think, okay, when I get back to sales, there's a different confidence level because obviously like you're selling what's happening on the operation side or whatnot. Has there been anything as of recent within the past 3 months, 6 months, past year, where now that you've been more focused on that side, there's some things that you may be a little bit more interested to get back to on the sales side?
For sure. And there's, I think, kind of a 2-part answer on it. Yeah. So I have a couple shippers who have a rather niche market. It's not conventional full truckload. And I, like everybody else, I'm sitting there playing on Claude code,
Hmm.
and I think
Yeah,
everybody's doing that right now.
lots of people.
And I'm having these conversations, and this is a shipper where there's specific things that need to be ID'd and they need to know their location. And then billing happens. Like we get reference numbers after loads delivered. My billing department's ready to kill me because we're across 3 channels. We're in Teams and we're in Slack and we're in Outlook. We're all over the place. And so I'm like, we can stand something up to where we set up, effectively build like a domain that the shipper can put in bids. I'll get a Slack notification. I'll go in and bid it. They'll enter the trailer number. I've integrated it with our TMS. It shows them the status and the location of the trailer, pings them on Teams when it's delivered, and then it stays pinging them on Teams until they give us a reference number. And then once it has a reference number, it kicks it to billing.
Hmm.
Well, it turns out a lot of people in this kind of niche space operate that way.
Okay.
And so now when I'm calling them, I already have kind of a problem to solve for them. And I take them, I guess you can call it a demo. I kind of show them some
Yeah.
screen share of it. But yeah, I mean, it increases the confidence when you know how to solve the problems that reside in an industry across multiple shippers. But yeah, also sometimes it's like when you're doing ops, I can't wait to
Yeah.
people.
I bet.
Grass is always greener, right? When I'm selling, I'm like, I wish I was more focused on ops. And when I'm training, I'm like, I wish I was selling.
Yeah. You always want to do the other one
For sure.
for a little bit. Yeah. That's what's fun. You can switch between both and just sort of the nature of the game. I'm curious for you guys and, just like your approach with sales in general. I feel over the past year, at least on my side, that we've been getting a lot of questions around account management and just like account expansion. I think you were saying that was, one of the things that Hopkins really pays attention to is just wallet share with the customers that you're working with. How do you guys take the approach and balance of focusing on new shipper onboarding and sales and then also the account expansion piece?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's cheaper to increase load share than onboard a new customer, right? It's also not guaranteed that you're going to onboard a new customer, but it's almost always certain that there's additional load share to be captured with a shipper.
Mhm.
I will say we don't have that code cracked. Like we have improvements to make on our account retention and our account expansion. We are always kind of looking for ways to do that. And Hopkins is really good on the account management side. It's interesting. I think it's probably easier to implement a strategy on that across the enterprise accounts. And that's not our ICP. Increasing load, like we do have some customers where we do have just about 100% of the load share, right? And that's smaller companies. Some might classify as mid-market, but mostly at, small businesses. But yeah, I mean, account retention and expanding wallet share is cheaper than onboarding new customers. It's a little more difficult to manage, I would say, because we don't know what opportunities exist until we ask. And even when we do ask, there are a lot of shippers that are very defensive about their incumbents and other opportunities. And if I've got a friend who's got a fleet who runs the Southeast for me and Logan comes in and asks me why he's only getting Northeast shipments, I'm going to be defensive of that. So we haven't cracked the code of it, but yes, account retention has been kind of in our crosshairs,
Yeah.
figuring out how to do it, and the expansion within those accounts, obviously very important too.
With all the conversation around, rates and just some of the other stuff that's going on, I guess for your sales team, do you feel like as more recent that there's been more conversations where shippers are a lot more open to having conversations now? Or do you feel like it's relatively the same? How's it been on your side?
No, shippers are calling us.
Nice.
And it's
Okay,
and
tell
it's
me about
so,
that.
and it's so nice. Yeah, I mean, shippers are calling us. We're SMBs. People are coming out of the woodwork. They do that seasonally this time of the year for us, since we're mostly open deck, about 65%. So we're used to seeing that seasonal like uptick. But we have people who we hadn't heard from in 3 years. They're like, hey, please go.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Because we do service small one-off shippers just like we would kind of like that perfect fit section mid-market account. If you're a one-off, we're gonna treat you like you have repeat business, right? And I think they appreciate that. And I don't think a lot
Why
of
do
those
you take that
shippers.
approach? Not to cut you off, but why do you take that approach on those? Because I think that there's a lot of people that would sit there and say, if they're just one-offs, it's not, some people are going to say it's not worth the long-term squeeze, but like, what's your approach there to say, hey, we need to make sure that they still have the same elevated experience?
Yeah, I mean, two-sided answer on that. Selfishly, from a business standpoint, you get repeat business. And it might be one-off, right? One-offs are rare. We're still going to service it correctly. Most of the time, they're 2 times a year, once a year, once every 2 years. I mean, obviously, you want them to come back. We built our company on small businesses. Business standpoint, the margins are better. You're not fighting a bunch of competition. From a personal standpoint, you should just treat everybody. You should take the time and service everybody with a degree of care that you would service the next person, right? That's not,
Yeah.
and they're usually easier, right? A lot of the smaller one-off shippers are looking. Enterprise shippers do this too, and mid-market accounts as well, but they're really looking for that consultative kind of manner of approach where it's like, you and I have been in logistics so long, it becomes difficult for us to remove ourselves from the fact that 99.9% of the population, if I said, hey, find me an 18-wheeler to move something from Boston to San Diego, just no idea where to start. not even close. Right.
Be a funny
So
Google
yeah, I
search.
mean, yeah. So they listen to us, we listen to them, we cater, we take care of them, they come back, but you never know either, man. Like we've had some where we service these one-off accounts. A friend's cousin's buddy or coworker or whatever needs his F-250 that he just sold moved. We put it on a
Hmm.
wedge or a hot shot and we'll do that. And all of a sudden he's like, well, my cousin works at this
Yep.
mid-market company and you guys are great, and
Right.
easy to get along with. And you talk to the cousin, you get a good word in from the cousin, you're in good shape. And all of a sudden that you kind of web out from there. But
Yeah. I love that too, man. I mean, we think about that. We talk about that internally a lot as well. For the people that we talk to, like, we get sometimes solo agents or somebody that's just like a startup brokerage looking to get started with the CRM. And I think it still has to be like a level of, hey, like we can't just like scoff at those kinds of different ones because we never know what's going to happen with them. They could be part of a much larger agency or their brokerage, unfortunately sometimes like doesn't work out and they go somewhere else, or I don't know. It's just like one of those industries where people rotate and you never really know who knows who. But the reason why I was just asking about that is because I just know that there's some of in my opinion, like the short game, short term minded people that would sit there and not really look at what the broader opportunity potentially could be, and just thinking like it's may not be worth the squeeze right now.
for
So
sure. And
I think
I
it's a good
also
approach.
on that same token, it's like, man, if you have business calling you and you don't have the intention on servicing it well,
Hmm.
should you really be here?
Yeah,
One of my favorite kind of concepts and something that we try to share a lot around here is that if you're too big for the small stuff, then you're too small for the big stuff.
it's good. It's a good
You're
phrase.
not ready. You're not ready to step up to the box if you can't take Farmer Jim's call on his hot shot for 2 bales of hay. Right. So
Good deal. So when we spoke last, we were talking a little bit about sales channels. You had said that calls were, the main squeeze, and really what you guys focused on. You said that you had some email legends at your in your office, particularly Roper. So we talked a little
yeah,
bit
who's
about.
mad? Who's mad at you, by the way, because your
I
phone
know,
was being all wonky.
I know. I need to call him directly and just be like, "Hey, man, you can't text me, but you can." He has to just text me directly. I gotta readdress that situation with him because he probably thinks I
Yeah,
don't like him. Uh,
that's fine.
That's also funny too. Side note: if that ever happens again, you need a welfare check on me like ASAP. If
I'll
I don't
fly to
if I don't
Tampa.
respond
I'll let
within
you know.
2 to 3 hours, then something's probably wrong.
Yeah, yeah, for
So, especially within a day, but the fact that it took like 5 days is just not great. Anyway, just curious about that. So, I'm going to be curious to talk to you a little bit more about like some sales trends and stuff that I've been paying attention to, or just stuff that I've been reading online. It takes in general, but has that sort of stayed the main thing? It's just like, hey, calls is still the main thing. Has there been anything that's changed for you guys in terms of your approach?
No, calls even more so. I mean, I think we're big proponents for handwritten letters. We
Great.
are
Okay.
and have been, but that's not in like the crumpled letter trash can thing that's I've seen going around.
Yep. I'm
It's
seeing
just
that.
handwritten letters, especially after first load. Thank you notes,
Okay.
big for the program.
Hmm.
Sometimes people are like, "Why'd you write me a letter?" Whatever.
Really? That's so funny.
Oh yeah, I called the shop one time. I was like, "Did you get my letter?" She's like, "A wrong number, sorry." Yeah,
Yeah.
but calls now more than ever, man. You see the
Calls.
Do you see the absolute garbage come to your inbox every day?
Yeah, it's nonstop, man. It's the I mean, you can obviously tell a lot of people are using the same systems, but the two that are
Sure.
really annoying to me, I'm sure like you probably get one of them that just talks about like, oh, you're in the transportation industry. I get it to where people email me and they say, we're really, we'd love to have you on our podcast because we're looking to talk to computer software leaders. And it's because whatever system that they use just uses computer software as the industry that I'm bucketed in. But it's
Yeah,
just like the most generic and vague, basic thing ever when I read it. And I just instantly know that I'm just like some big
it's your
sequenced.
NAICS code. Yeah, it's your
Yes,
NAICS code,
yes,
and it's
exactly.
yeah, it's garbage.
So it's that, and then there's this other one that is just the most, I don't know, cheesy, corny thing, but what they'll do is they'll take this little snapshot at the bottom that looks like a forwarded email from their boss that says, "Hey, Ashley,
God.
reach out to Josh to have him on the podcast or about funding or something along those lines." And then it's like, "Hey, my boss, told me to reach out to you." And it's just the most fake drawn up thing ever. But I get so many of them.
Yeah,
I get so many of
yeah.
them.
I
So,
can't
yeah.
imagine because I mean we're freight, man. Freight's not sexy. You got software.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
bet
it's
you.
just like
Yeah.
weird stuff. What's funny too? I get a little bit of karma too for messing with Hopkins about his funding posts back in the day, but I get so many text messages messages now at this point about funding. I mean, emails too, but like I just get the most random one-off text messages about the funding. And then they just like offer you money straight up. And I'm sure some people just see that and they just take it and just ruin their
which
lives.
is
But
crazy.
yeah, because they're in business somehow, some way. So I'm
Sure.
assuming they're probably helping some people out. All right, cool. So you said calls are still, really the main thing that you guys are focusing on and everything. Has there? I mean, I guess just from like an office standpoint, when you guys are talking about just like sales strategy, pipeline management, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe let's talk about this. This question came up to me on another conversation that I was having around accountability. And I'm curious about this for you guys, because obviously things have worked out and like you guys are growing and have continued to grow. How do you guys focus, just for your team, focus on keeping reps accountable?
It's hard, especially on the cradle to grave side. And that's who does the majority of our selling. It's very hard. And that has probably been the biggest struggle for me since starting the company. I'll circle back to I'm the guy who wants to know what the floor is doing right now. I want to know if you're out. I want to know if you're booking a load, if you're tracking the truck, or you're on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had to catch myself and sometimes even apologize to individuals where I get onto them because they don't seem busy. And then I look at their week or month or year production, it's just up through the roof. And so it's the most difficult part has been finding a balance for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have also kind of evolved what we look for in hiring. We are a pretty relaxed office, but we do have expectations and we have some metrics that we hold people accountable to. And it's pretty clear cut of what's expected. And we kind of blend, operational production or operational productivity with outreach. And then we will manage the pipeline to see who's sitting in your pipeline that's in one of the lower who's further down in your pipeline who hadn't been touched in 10 days. We do that with the help of Sales Dash CRM.
Quick plug.
But yeah, so we do a number of things. We have very clear cut metrics on what we expect out of everybody. Sometimes I get a little fast and I want people to be doing something today, even though they've very likely been doing it over a consistent period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've evolved our hiring process to hire self-starters, and we'll do discipline and consistency over motivation any day, because some days you're not going to want to pick up the phone. And that's
Yep.
okay, because you still got to pick up the phone. We'll also lead by example. We still onboard customers. We still sell, but it's tough, man. It's a balance, right?
For sure.
Because some days the phone's really heavy. Some days it's not. Some days it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of the further down, the further people go in their tenure, we'll move them through different phases where, you first get here, you're making 80 or 100 calls a day for a
Right.
while. You start
Yeah.
doing some business. We're going to kind of swap those scales to eventually, hey, dude, reach out to 10 people every day, whether it be 7 follow-ups, 3 colds, whatever, or your shippers and receivers, put them in your pipeline and reach out to them. If you're calling for an update, sell passively, right? So it shifts, but it is a balance.
Cool. That's what I was going to ask a little bit more on that piece, because I don't come from the cradle to grave world. It was just more, hey, like, we're split model, and then you're really focused on new shipper onboarding, getting more quotes, or you're focused on booking trucks. And I feel like every time I've talked to the cradle to grave shots, so it's just the hard balance between like just focusing on your book and what's on the board, and then getting somebody to pivot back to the hardest part of the job of cold calling,
Sure.
or the part that most people just dislike, can be
Sure.
a challenge. So yeah, I was curious about how you guys approach that, because everybody's business and days are just different, right? Everybody's hours are different. Like, things can change in 2 hours for a rep. They can have a wide open day, and then, all of a sudden it changes really fast. But I've always been curious about that from the cradle to grave side of like, how do you just build a daily consistency to still say, I've got to still keep the sales hat on. Granted, I've got to make sure obviously the ops is taken care of, because if that's not there, then, nobody eats.
Yeah, of course. And we've got the operational metrics that we look at, the on-time pickups, on-time deliveries, account retention, all of that stuff. It's kind of embarrassing how long it took us to find a simple kind of formula for it. We
Mhm.
effectively say there's 3 or 4 things that make up a full day's work as a broker, cradle to grave. You can make this many transactions in a day. You can book this many loads. You can do this much in gross margin. You can make this many outbound calls. You can get our marketing material to this many people. Okay. We take a full day's work of each one of those, right? And then at the end of the day, we're integrated in all of our systems. We got a dashboard that says, hey, here's how it's stacked up. And if the percentage of a full day's work you did from X number of categories adds up to 100, we're satisfied.
Got it.
But it's also a balance of, you want those to be enforceable, so they have to be attainable. They have to push, but this isn't a quarterly reach where it's, I need you to, like, this is your goal, go knock it out of the park. I mean, it's a daily thing, so it does take some balance, because I can tell anybody in the world, you need to book, you who's been here for 6 months needs to book $5,000 in margin a day or make 80 phone calls a day. Nobody's going to do that.
Right.
It's not gonna happen, right? So the goals, the actual numbers we have laid out, I would say are moderate, but they're sustainable. And it's a process that we've seen over time. It works, especially if the selling is done very intentionally.
One of the main clips and things that I think resonated with a lot of people just from our last conversation was when you were talking about the no customers being the best customers because of how hard it is to start working with them and whatnot. But with that, right, it can take 8 to 12 follow-ups like we talked about, sometimes even more. I guess for the reps, like, how do you get them to work to even want to dig in to get to that point?
Yeah, I can't make anybody want it. Like, you want it or you don't. You got it or you don't, right? Some people wake up and they're like, I'm going to go tackle the world. And some people wake up and they're like, I'm going to go on the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you're the one who wants to go on the path of least resistance, you're not going to tap in, and you don't have a great amount of consistency and discipline. Like, you're not going to tap in to like that 12th follow-up, right? Something that makes it easier, if you want to systemize it, is we try, like, the biggest mistake, and I think we talked about this last time too, that we see, and you're going to hear the buzzword here. And it's not just because LLMs have suddenly become so big, but like, dude, context is everything, right? You pick up a phone, the first thing you do is you're loading context, right? Who is this? Where are you? What do you want? Etc. Like, in order to get to 8 to 12 and work a sale through a cycle as it should be worked, you can't make 8 cold calls to the same person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to get what you can off of call 1, and you have to carry it to call 2. And then you have to get what you can off of call 2 and carry it into call 3. But what happens is they become so much easier, because when you're having conversations with substance with shippers, they're going to talk to you more. They're going to be more receptive. If you're going to build some momentum with them and get them talking, then you're not going to take 8 or 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
So getting to that 8 and 12, everything in sales, in my opinion, from a cold call all the way to a full pipeline and retention, is front loaded, right? We sit down every Wednesday and we do 30 minutes we'll listen to a call with all of our sales reps in a room, and we'll say, we'll have an area of focus, objection handling, momentum, etc. And we'll listen to one person's call. They're always very embarrassed. We usually don't choose super good ones because we want to be, constructive.
You got to be real too, because not all the majority of them are not good.
Dude, 10% of calls are like good.
Sure. Yeah.
30% are okay. And like 2% are the juice, but we front load everything. When we sit down in those meetings, we can track back almost all of the lost momentum and bad calls to like how we could have changed the lead in. It's like, look, you had 3 seconds, because you don't get 30 seconds. What's important is that 3 seconds at the beginning, right? We can track almost everything back to that. And then front loading kind of how we are approaching a call leads to better results down the, towards the end of the call, or on a large level towards the end of the pipeline. So I think a lot of people get stuck in the cycle of making calls to make a call or to hit a number. And that's not exclusive to us. I believe that's every industry, every, brokerage, every sales rep is probably guilty of this at one point. But
yeah, I think many brokerages, at least it's not the same these days, but most brokerages would just put the 100 number out there, like $100 a day. Like, nobody's going to tell you the math or the rhyme and reason behind like what the $100 is going to get you, but they just say that that's what you got to do.
And you're going to get shitty results, right? You will, because there is a huge difference between calling to sell and calling so I can check a box
just to hit $100.
And I think that taints the sales cycle, right? Like, you're giving a person a first impression when you dial that phone on your first call. And like, if I'm calling just to hit a number, like, there's no point in making 8 or 12, because it's just not going to work unless I come through and, because they've already got an impression. I mean, now I have to work upwards past baseline to get them to like me and be open to talking to me. So why don't I lower that number from 100 If you're calling all day, let's do 80, right? 70. It's going to be a lot of work. You can make 70 diligent calls in a day. But if I front load that relationship building and our offerings and that personability onto that first call, and then within that call, I set a good tone from the beginning, from my lead in, it builds a foundation to build that sales cycle and that sales call.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think everything that you're saying too about it's one of the reasons why I think the CRMs are very valuable is because it's like it's taking the stuff from call one, two, three, and early on, and actually building that. Because to me, I always look at that as the buyer's experience, right? And you're the one as the salesperson that's creating whatever that experience is. But I think from a buyer's experience standpoint, if they have to start over from zero with you every time, and then if I remember that you're going to be asking me the same questions over and over and over again, I like that to me that just signals multiple different things where I probably should not really trust you with my business, or
For
no, this
sure.
is just a frustrating experience in general. So if this is what it's like on the front end, and I haven't even signed a check or anything like that in the beginning, then what's it going to be like on the back end after that?
Yeah, are you going to be this boring while you're quoting me? Like, are you going to lack personality this much when you have $100,000 with my freight on your truck?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, man. And I think doing that too, we see a lot of in the afternoons and when people have made a lot of calls, like calling to hit a number, man, it's just so many opportunities missed.
hmm
Like we will hear recordings, and that's one of our biggest things. You hear listening so much in sales, but we'll hear recordings. The cracks and crevices of a call are where the opportunity sits, right? And if I'm making a call just to make a call, not only am I giving a bad pitch, but I'm also not attentive and I'm not listening. 'Cause nobody owes us momentum or talk time on a call. I have
yep,
to earn it, right? And usually that comes from building off of what they're saying. But if I'm mindless, I'm not going to hear it in the first
yeah. Good
place.
luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough and short, one way or the other. Last thing I wanted to at least go back to from our previous conversation, because I was listening back to some of it, and I thought this was really interesting because honestly, I think what most people do, especially in brokerage sales, is they've got their Zoom info, they've got their Apollo seamless license, like whatever lead generation tool that you want to pick. They're using the filters in there, they're getting their lead list and all that kind of stuff. You talked about from a training perspective that you work to get your salespeople to also think about production versus consumption markets. And I thought that that was very interesting because obviously, like, that helps them to get to think about how they're approaching their business a lot differently. I'm curious for you to just expand on that a little bit more and why that is so important for you from a training perspective.
Sure. So we primarily teach that when we're talking about rates and
Okay.
markets, right? It does translate really well into when we're calling. And I don't know if it's me or everybody else, but these lead gen providers are just not it, man. It's just not it, in my
Just the
opinion.
data
And,
quality.
data quality and it doesn't fit our ICP. Like
Okay.
it doesn't have what we specifically are looking for.
Which
So
would
I
be what
probably
though?
overstepped there and said they're not it, but they're obviously very successful. Our ICP we're going to find on Google Maps, man. And I know that's weird, but we're going to find them on Google Maps and word of mouth. Like
Mhm.
some of our best people don't have websites. Somebody's cousin told somebody else that their nephew just got hired over here. And then obviously we do the lead gen. But back to your question, production and consumption, when we have our guys make it doing a Zoom, because we do use Zoom info, a lot of our guys prefer to, get leads and prospect on Google Maps or trade show attendee lists or anything like that. But they kind of know where to look, right? And you're going to know what markets are shipping what for the most part. I know Central Carolina is going to do a lot of meat, right? They're going to have a huge amount of pork out there. Virginia as well.
Mhm.
Houston's going to be pretty good for hot shots and flatbeds and heavy haul. And they're also able to discuss markets that way. If I'm calling into a consumption market, I need to know that my outbound price needs to be competitive because there's going to be a lower loaded truck coming out of there or lower MCI coming out of there. So they're going to know in X Nebraska, right? Trucks are kind of a dime a dozen. And if I have a shipper who's actively shipping through there, that's going to be incorporated into how I'm presenting our services. Vice versa, if I'm calling Houston, I better know what I'm talking about on the open deck. But since so many of these shippers are getting calls every day from Houston, I know what I need to sell on. And that is our experience in open deck and heavy haul, permitted loads and police
Mhm.
escorts and that kind of stuff. But it just goes back to kind of a comprehensive training of everything when tied together correctly can help in sales because when we train on it, they've got no operational experience. So we're trying to get them as close to that as possible.
Makes sense. Let's talk about some trends. So really quick, I'm curious on what your just general take is on these. I've got my own opinions and takes, but I'm gonna save most of this just to kind of hear what you think. So to
Let's do
me,
it.
I mean, I think in my opinion, the biggest one, just from a sales perspective, has been AI personalization at scale. And, obviously like doing emails and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but what are your just general thoughts and takes on that from a trend perspective and a lot of people leveraging that technology now?
On email specifically or kind of across the board?
I would say email specifically, but if you're talking about any other domains, I'd be interested of like what you're seeing there too.
Yeah, I don't, unless you're giving language models the contextual exhaust from your full email, like how you're speaking,
Hmm.
and you're structuring that data in the correct way for it to retrieve. I mean, it's not gonna sound good. Man, I've tried
Yeah.
it.
I know you're a big
Like
formality guy too.
I've tried the email thing, man. And it's
Yeah.
just like, I think everybody has, right? Because these language models are so fascinating and their capabilities
Yeah.
are awesome and they're so useful. But it's like, it's not going to talk like me until I give it what it needs to do so.
Right.
And I think that is the mountain that needs to be climbed, that is going to take a very long time for a lot of people before these things are actually kind of customized. Man, I can prompt a model all day. I can think of every tonality adjective under the sun and I can describe it as best as possible. And I'll tell it to take out the M dashes and I'll tell it to do this and that. And you know, I don't know. I think it will be useful one day, but I think the way people are using it now, it's so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Well, I think what you're saying though, of like front loading it with context and everything, it's what most people I don't think are really doing. They're just taking it out of the box and letting it do based on, oh, this is what our large data set is, or this is just how it's configured and stuff. But yeah, if you don't prompt it to try to speak a specific way, or use a specific number of characters or a specific kind of call to action, like not use the M dashes and that kind of
Sure.
stuff. Or even like, yeah, where is it sourcing data from? I've seen more of it doing it from LinkedIn posts and stuff. I pay attention. I get some of those like, hey, Josh, saw your last post on X, Y, or Z, and obviously it's also one of those things. But I think that stuff's because yeah, you could get data from so many different sources, but I still think it's the relevancy. I think that that's still a lot of times the big miss. Like when I am watching those emails come through to me, most of them still are not relevant and they're still clearly not personalizing, in my opinion, like to where I really feel that you actually know who I am and like what I'm
And I
doing and
think,
why you're even reaching out to me. Like, is that even relevant?
yeah, and I think the biggest issue that I see too is now it's so obvious and apparent like the bad players have showed their hand.
Hmm.
So like even if I can get that customized perfectly, right? And I can sync it up to you and I have like a perfect sales pitch of exactly what you need, but it's been written by a language, is that going to devalue that pitch? Are you going to believe what you're reading?
No, I think
Right. I'm not either
it
because
definitely devalues. It's the same thing with content when you watch the content online.
yeah, so it's like now I'm more concerned about what's writing it and who's writing it than I am the actual content because as far
Yeah.
as I know, it's like you get on Reddit and you go to the freight broker Reddit page.
Hmm.
Everybody's fishing around for
Ideas.
bottlenecks and pain points. It's
Yeah.
like you developer, I know who you are. You
It's
know
one
what
of
I'm
my
saying?
favorite things. Immediately the comments, like the first
Oh, it's a
comment's gonna be just
roast
letting them, they get
session.
all the upvotes and everything. I love it. It's so funny.
But it's fun, right? To tie it back in, like, is that even an offering that you have? Or did you just tell, because just as easily as that, you can say, if I am customizing like a prompt to send to a cross-border chem, or if I take all of my data points, my NAICS code, I get it to scrub a website, I do this and that, and I say, hey, write an email. Here's my contextual exhaust. Here's my verbiage. Here's what I sound like when I'm on an email. And
Mhm.
I structure that data set correctly. And then I get a perfect email that's like, hey, I have, cross border, cross dock in Laredo. We got a spot for that. We have Mexican carriers. We'll bring it to the border. We'll cross dock it. We got has all the way up here, consolidate, whatever. Let's say I nail that. That doesn't mean I offer that service.
Right?
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Sounds great, but
yeah,
then you
it
got to go do
does.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like, not only am I distrustful of the writer, I'm also like, if you can automate it that well, how do I know that it's even true?
Right. You don't.
Right.
But that's where I think also the phone calls come back to it. It's like, okay, cool. If you can really talk the game over the phone and explain that stuff of what you're doing and everything, then it's obviously a lot more believable because anybody can put things in emails these days. And yeah, a lot of them feel structured and formatted the exact same way. So it just doesn't feel like it's them and their skill set. All right. So the next one, moving on from that one that I'm curious about is intent data. More, some more buzz on intent data just in general. So some examples for people that aren't super familiar with intent data. This could be people visiting your website and saying like, oh, this contact or this person has visited your website, right? So they may be showing intent to buy. Or, oh, this person, was searching for trucking companies or transportation companies. I know like Zoom Info provides some of that stuff. Carrier Source is a logistics specific one that provides some specific data around those kinds of different things. So just like with intent and signals and whatnot, what's your take on that in sales?
Yeah. Yeah. I think intent, it's kind of funny. A lot of our strategy and how we do things is super scaled down. So we're not going to see on Zoom Info that there's intent from a Fortune 500 company that just hired a new director of transportation. It's just not our play. Now, I think and there's people smarter than me who are working, way
Do you
smarter than
take
me that are
hiring
working on this.
signals if somebody like let's just say a mid-market was hiring a new director of transportation or a new shipping manager or whatnot? Is that something where that would be a signal for you guys or you'd want to be making sure a rep's on the phone with that company?
We're not actively tracking that.
Got
But
it.
if we do hear if we hear that through word of mouth that somebody's got a new shipping manager, yeah, of course we're gonna call them. But that's not something that we're exporting and leveraging all the time.
Yep.
I
Okay.
think again, I'm not the brightest bulb in the room. There are people way smarter than me working on this. I think the real value comes from internal intent that might not surface all the time. That
Give
that
me
usually goes unsurfaced.
give me one example that you're willing to share.
Carriers calling in on loads that are covered. Covered, sorry, by
Got it.
that is all intent. That is proprietary exhaust. That is a carrier signaling that they want this lane or at some point are available to run this lane.
Got it.
I think 95% of phone correspondence specifically, and email too, but that's easy.
Hmm.
Phone correspondence goes under leverage.
Yeah, of course. Big time.
Same with customers.
Yep.
If I can, yeah.
Are you guys leveraging like AI summaries and all that kind of stuff when it does come to the phone calls?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Next one I'm curious about. A little bit more old school, but just outside visits and door knocking. How much of that is a factor for Black Box? And is it something that you guys care about?
We don't do a ton of door knocking. We'll get wild hairs sometimes. We had Project Quadrant a while ago. There's
Okay.
like 6 or 8 square blocks back there that are just full of manufacturers. And it's like, yeah, go knock them down. You can leave whenever you want, go knock them.
Okay.
It was kind of successful. We'll send on customer visits. And when we do that, we will, build lists for doors to be knocked on. We got some guys up in the Boston and New Hampshire area now visiting some customers, and they're going to go knock on some doors while they're up there. Some local companies, yeah. And then 1 or 2 of our guys who are almost exclusively sales and don't do a ton of ops, I'll send them on missions sometimes. But yeah, not a ton, not as much as we should. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of value in door knocking and dropping off donuts. Something we definitely want to explore more of.
You feel like the team when they are doing that they're typically getting a lot more information, or whether it's information about just their shipping operation or even just like setup conversion, right, and getting onboarded.
Sure.
Do you see better conversions with that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Because if you looked at the amount of outbound calls we've made in this office, I couldn't even guess. It's a manageable number of door knocks that we've done, and we've converted quite a few customers that way.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Next one is just going to be using, basically just using AI for company research, whether it's about like locations, products, commodities, that kind of stuff in pre-call prep. That's obviously become, I think, a little bit more of a trend and, more relevant, but what's your take on it?
If you know how to use it, it's good, right? We kind of stand by. If I were to prompt a model on how to do a pre-call prospect, I wouldn't do it any differently than we train our reps. The observations that you make about what you're looking at, the deductions you're making from that, and how we're going to execute on it.
Hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, it's great. If you know how to use it, it's great. I think there's a lot of creep that happens once we get to that. and people start trying to get this perfect pitch, and that takes 30 minutes to do, tweaking prompts, getting ready, reading it, and then they just don't pick up the phone. Or
Hmm.
like, and then they're like, yeah, not interested, sorry.
Yep.
So it's where is that a return? And don't get me wrong, man, I'm super bullish. I'm super bullish on AI.
Hmm.
I'm not anti AI. We use it a lot. But regarding a manual pre-call prospecting, it takes out, because then what happens when one of my new reps is like, hey, do you use this, just this thing? And the prospect says, yes, I do, but here and there, like there is a wall of understanding that is a hard limit for somebody on the phone, right? So it's like, yeah, you can say all of this stuff, but can you maintain that conversation?
Yeah. So you're saying more so like, okay, cool. That stuff's going to help you open up the conversation and everything, but can you actually carry it on to deliver on what you're actually talking about, what this LLM or AI is actually feeding you?
Cross-border hazmat consolidation.
Yeah.
Great.
That's
I
so
can say
funny.
it,
Okay.
but when you ask me about customs paperwork, I'm
Yeah.
like,
You
and
just,
then I'm
you just
really
bring
gonna,
it up and then they're like, yeah, tell me a little bit more about that. And you don't really have anything else to say.
yeah. Now
Then
I'm an idiot and a liar.
yeah,
You
you're caught with your
know,
pants
like
down. Yeah.
so
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because I've always thought about that too for a lot of people because I just think that I do think it's really good if you're really focused on obviously for the right ones that have the right signals or like let's just say information of like products and commodities and all that kind of stuff and if you're just familiar with that stuff but if it's about a bunch of stuff that you don't specialize in or don't know then yeah you could be putting yourself in a very awkward unique situation if that's just like not your expertise. So sure, you're cutting corners one way, but then it's like you can't really hide that when push comes to shove and if you got to go deliver.
for
So
sure. And
yeah.
our sales calls don't sound like anything that they're far more informal than that. It's like,
Hmm.
hey, how are you doing? And then we're gonna tell them what we do. But it's going to be far more informal than anything language model is kind of going to spit out.
Cool. Last one I've got, at least off the top of my head, is more, I guess, focused around like shippers and customers. But I feel from a conversation that I had with a shipper at one of the conferences last year, and then just kind of hearing this from a few different customers, I felt like I've been hearing more around shippers like looking for more multimodal type service and people that can obviously, just offer more let's just say like I felt that there was a time period, and again, I'm out of it, so I don't really know in terms of like what they're saying on the phone and what they're asking for. But I do feel that there was a period of time, maybe I don't know, 2 to 4 years ago, within that window, where it was a little bit heavier, where shippers were telling people, from what I was hearing, of we want you to be really specialized, like good at one thing. Like, what are you good at? What lanes are you really good at, right? Or like what equipment type, etc. You guys with open deck, and then I feel like as of recent, it's actually sort of broadened up where it's like, hey, we want people to be able to handle LTL and truckload and cross border and,
Sure.
whatever it may be. Is that something that you've been hearing, or at least like your team's been hearing a little bit more of, or is it still sort of the same, or it's just like not even relevant and no, it doesn't come up at all?
It's kind of, I think, again, I'll preface it like our ICP is not the one who is like, we need
Who's
cross
gonna?
border and international, and that we need, you know, consolidation to a warehouse and then LTL from there. That's just, but I will say, you hear everybody talking about the consolidation of the brokerages, right?
Hmm.
Brokers are going to get swallowed up by the big guys.
Yeah. What's your take on that?
Might happen, might not. We're still here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I like,
Does that
we
give you
have,
some
okay,
optimism though? Like, just being a brokerage the size that you guys are and everything. Because, you see some of the big media heads talk about it and they're just saying, oh, it's going to be a struggle for some of the smaller brokerages and stuff. This definitely benefits the big guys. But I mean, I feel like from knowing you a bit, like, do you actually feel that there's like some optimism and a ton of opportunity that's in front of you, or what do you feel
yeah,
there?
for sure. There is a lot, especially in kind of our target market, man. Like, I, dude, I work with a bunch of people out of East Texas, and if Amazon called them, they'd be like, "No, what?" You
Yeah.
know, and they want to talk to the person they want to talk to. They want to talk to their rep here. They don't want to get put on hold. It's very rare that the turnaround times at these larger firms, with the exception of a few, can really like match our levels, and they're definitely not being serviced in the same way and getting the relationships developed that we kind of hold ourselves to a standard to here. I would also say, yeah, I mean, there's always optimism in it, but the biggest level of confidence that I have in it is based on the size we're at. We're big enough to have resources that we need, but we're small enough to move fast. So we can make decisions quickly. We can move into different, modes quickly. We have Mexico offerings, we have LTL offerings, we have intermodal offerings, which is great. And we're able to kind of pivot because we've got the resources to throw at it. But at the same time, there's not the red tape to say, no, we can't do this. That's a slippery slope because you got to stick to what you're good at. Right. And regarding the consolidation of brokerages, I say it could happen. It might not because I can't tell the future.
Mhm.
But I've been in freight for 10 years now, and every year it's been something. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Right. Something gets
but
thrown your way.
life goes
Yeah.
on. Yeah, life goes on. You put your head down, you come in, you do your best work, you try to treat people fairly. And so far, life has provided pretty good results from that policy.
Yeah. Yeah, I always find it interesting. I don't know. I don't think it's been one of those things where it's I mean, of course, like you're always going to see I feel like some of that activity every single year, no matter what, one way or the other, good or bad or whatnot, but it just has been feeling like they think it's going to be just this massive wave, and I don't know. I'm curious to actually see like what actually pans out. But it feels like every week when I'm talking to customers and just feeling like, how's the week treating you and everything? Like it feels like every week is just very different right now.
For
So
sure. And well, the market's great, man. The market's been, I mean, it's where dude, carriers deserve this market.
yeah,
It's been bad, man.
for a
And,
long
it's
time.
tough conversations with shippers and yeah, it's hectic and chaotic. And one of the problems is, and fortunately, I think the freight media is actually pretty decent. Like given, if you look at our industry relative to other industries and how crazy their media narratives and how,
Oh yeah, just
doom and
spinning the
gloom they are, like I think freight's got it pretty good. But that doesn't change the fact that headlines are going to sell.
yep, for sure.
And if you say that the small brokerages are going to get swallowed up, you've just caught a lot of people's attention. And,
It worked.
if it's noise or if it's not noise, there's nothing. I personally, I'm not powerful of enough of a person to like change that. So,
Can only control your narrative.
so yeah, you control what you pay attention to, and if I spend 3 months paying attention to that instead of putting one foot in front of the other and continuing to do what we do, that's
Yeah,
just a wasted 3 months for something that may or may not be true.
it's a great point. Well, good deal, man. We're right at time. So I think we got through a good amount of topics and stuff. It's fun to talk through some of those trends and stuff. I'm sure we could probably have a whole at least 30 to 45-minute episode on, Claude and talking about some of the AI stuff and everything. So
Yeah,
I know we
yeah. Give
didn't
me
get
give me a couple of months, and then I'd love to chop it up on that for
yeah,
sure.
I'd be curious about that. There's some stuff that we're pretty intrigued on and like still tinkering and messing around with and everything. But yeah, like it's hard not to pay attention to a lot of those things. But it's also just a super fast paced moving world where it's like, man, they're releasing a feature or it feels like multiple different new
Yeah,
products and features almost like every day or two, and just like
it's a
the
full
upkeep
time
with that.
job. If you're trying to keep up with that, dude, it's a full time
It
job.
feels like more than a full-time job sometimes, but they're shipping stuff, so they're making it happen. Well, good deal, man. Always good catching up. Always good talking. Appreciate you always sharing the insights and your, just from your experience and, just your feel of like everything that's going on and stuff and just the honesty and transparency and stuff. I'll make sure to plug Black Box in and yourself on the in the comments and everything. And as always, man, appreciate you taking the time and we'll catch up on some golf here pretty soon.
Sweet. Yeah, tell everybody how your game's been, man. Real quick before we get off.
You
What's
know,
strong, what's not.
So, I mean, I guess like really quick fun fact, I've only shot a below 80 one time and it was with you in Birmingham. Still the only time that I've ever done it. Didn't even know I did it until after we were done with the round because I wasn't paying attention. But it was one of the best putting days that I've ever had. And it was also because I didn't hit my driver off the tee box. I was hitting my 3 iron off the tee
Yep.
box. So
Yep.
that helped. But no, just trying to dial in the tee box. The short game's feeling pretty good right now. And I'm really trying to work on I feel like I bring the club way too far back behind like my shoulder and it's not
Yeah.
up like vertical enough to make it easier to like promote like not basically not promote an over the top swing and slice the ball a
Sure.
lot. So I'm trying to
Sure.
prevent that. So that's what I'm working on right now.
I love it, man. I
And it's
love
just a
it. What a
grind.
game. What a beautiful game.
It is a beautiful game. And, when you get really frustrated, you have to remind yourself that like, hey, this is fun, even
Golf
though it
is
can
fun and
be
I'm happy to be outside.
just frustrated, just going to chase the ball in the woods.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Cool,
Good deal,
man.
man. All right, brother. I'll catch up with you soon.
All right, good seeing you.
Thanks, Logan.
Bye.